Hello and welcome to Newsdesk. I'm Biresh Banerjee.
And I'm Alex Forrest-Whiting.
Now, reports are coming in that Pakistan has carried out an airstrike in Afghanistan's Kandahar province. And remember, over the weekend, Taliban fighters in Afghanistan and Pakistani troops also exchanged fire along the border between their two countries. That apparently happened earlier today as well. Now, the fighting over the weekend happened at the same time that the Taliban foreign minister was in India, increasing diplomatic engagement with an arch-rival of Pakistan. So why are old friends, Pakistan and the Afghan Taliban, shooting at each other and old rivals, the Taliban and India, making up? It's what we're discussing today on Newsdesk.
And we really would like to get your comments and your thoughts on that, so do please put them in the chat. We do have a few comments from our community post that went up yesterday. RRB Second says, as an Indian, while I would love good relations with Afghanistan, the Taliban is not a government we should support, especially if it doesn't choose to reform. They were raised by the US and Pakistan, whom they stabbed in the back, they say. India has nothing in common with the Taliban. Farelli Boy makes this point: two superpowers couldn't defeat the Taliban. What hope does Pakistan have? And Mahibi Islam thinks it's all about geopolitics. They say India is making friendship with Afghanistan to just suppress Pakistan. Cunning. We've also had more comments in the chat. For example, Paul Danino saying this is 100% engineered by Putin. Others saying this is all about the US. So do please keep your comments coming. We will get to as many as we can and put them to our guests. Also helping me bring those comments to you, with you in the chat, is, of course, our very own Cherry Chan. And Cherry, you have a lovely poll for us, don't you?
I do. Like every week, I have a poll question for you. This week, we are asking, what is the best way to engage with the Taliban? There are four options. First is to recognize their government. Second, to provide humanitarian aid. The third, to push for women's rights. And the last one is to avoid engagement entirely. Remember to vote, and we will talk about the result later in our discussion.
We'll have those results at the end of the stream. And has everybody noticed Cherry and I are wearing similar kinds of jumpers? This was not planned at all. We just saw each other in the morning. We're like, how did that happen?
Best color.
We did not plan this. There is no WhatsApp group. But thank you, Cherry, for having good taste. We'll be having this discussion on the stream. To do that, we're going to be joined by two people, one of whom is already here in the studio, not a stranger to Newsdesk, Binish Javed, DW reporter, and virtually our resident Pakistan analyst. And the reason we keep having Binish back on is because she has experience of the region. She's also been to Afghanistan, and that experience she will be able to share with us today. And joining us later will also be somebody who has also herself been to Afghanistan, DW's New Delhi Bureau Chief, Sandra Petersman. She'll be joining us, of course, with the view from India, and also sharing some of her knowledge about the Taliban, because she has met them and talked to them. That's going to be happening later. But before we get to that, I just figured it would be important to just provide some sort of a context and more of a catch-up as to where things are. Remember, we were just saying, just before we went on air, there were news reports that Pakistan has targeted Kandahar in an airstrike. But also, if you go back to the weekend, there were clashes between the Afghan Taliban and Pakistani troops. That is something that those clashes looked like. The Taliban said it captured some Pakistani posts and killed about 58 Pakistani troops. Pakistan saying it killed about 200 Afghan Taliban soldiers. There is no way of independently verifying any of this. These are just claims and counterclaims. But this is what happened over the weekend. There were also reports of shooting and firing earlier from today. So something that keeps continuing and keeps happening. Now, why is this important? And this is important because these clashes occurred as a response, at least according to the Afghan Taliban. Now, the Afghan Taliban says that the root cause of all of this goes back to last week, especially on the Thursday, when the Afghan Taliban said Pakistan carried out airstrikes in Kabul and the eastern Paktika province. That is the claim that the Afghan Taliban made. There was no real confirmation or denial, for that matter, from Pakistan. Correct me if I'm wrong, Binish. There was no such claim or denial from Pakistan, but there was reporting that said that Pakistan was attempting to target the leader, or a vehicle of the leader of the TTP, what is the TTP, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, also commonly called the Pakistan Taliban, that the Pakistan government accuses the Taliban, the Afghan Taliban government, of harboring. The Pakistan government's claim is that the TTP is finding safe haven in Afghanistan and therefore carrying out terror attacks inside Pakistan. We'll have more about that later. We'll be talking more in depth about the TTP. But it's the timing of these alleged airstrikes on Thursday that is vitally important, because these airstrikes on Thursday happened on the very day that the Taliban's acting foreign minister, Amir Khan Muttaqi, was in India, remember, an old rival, meeting the Indian Foreign Affairs Minister, S. Jaishankar, whom you see in those images there on the left of your screens. Now, this was there to partly normalize ties with India. And I say normalize because India has not yet officially recognized the Taliban regime, but then both governments decided that, okay, India will open up, or rather enhance what exists now as a technical mission in Kabul to an embassy level status, and the Taliban will also send diplomats to Delhi. That is what was agreed. India also said, okay, we'll give you some ambulances, and there were also agreements to try and work with the Afghan Taliban to try and, not directly, but at least under their auspices, to work in the infrastructure sectors, particularly in healthcare, to try and improve facilities that already exist and build new ones.
But these pictures here, I mean, this was a real moment, wasn't it, that suddenly you have got this event taking place after everything that you've just talked about, and suddenly they're back in the room together.
Exactly, and this is something that they were building up to, because this didn't happen overnight, right? This was something they were building up to from 2021. August 2021, do you all remember those images of the Taliban walking into Kabul and taking over Kabul? In that same month, in Qatar, an Indian diplomat was meeting representatives of the Taliban. That was the first contact that was initiated from both sides. Then that was followed up in 2022 with an Indian Foreign Affairs delegation going from Delhi to Kabul to meet the Taliban. Then later in 2022, they signed an agreement on trade using the air corridors. So this was all building up to that moment. But it's very interesting that this is happening, and we were seeing those images, as you correctly pointed out, it's landmark that was happening in Delhi. Why? Because if you are Indian, you always go back to a certain set of images that are to do with the Taliban. And those images go back to 1999, this particular image. Yeah. This is an Indian Airlines flight that was sitting on Kandahar Airport, the tarmac of Kandahar Airport, back in 1999. This is IC-814 that was hijacked on its route from Kathmandu to Delhi by hijackers who were demanding the release of certain terrorists in Indian jails. That's one of the terrorists who was there on IC-814, one of the hijackers. Now, this is important for Indians because you can see this is the Taliban that had surrounded the plane, and this plane sat on the tarmac for about a week before India was forced to release 3 terrorists who were backed by Pakistan. At least that was the claim that India made. They were released to the Taliban. The Taliban then drove them to the Pakistan border and basically released it to Pakistan. And this is where the Pakistani involvement comes in, just as an example of it. India has always alleged that Pakistan supported the Taliban, and I think this is a fact that has been acknowledged even within Pakistani official circles. But when you're talking about Pakistan, the specific connection here comes to the Inter-Services Intelligence, or the ISI, Pakistan's external spy agency. And the allegation was that the ISI trained, supported financially the Taliban over decades. Remember, these images are from 1999 and go back to a time between 1996 and 2001. The Taliban was running Afghanistan, and Pakistan was one of only 3 nations that had recognized the Taliban government. But back to the ISI's involvement. So there were always allegations that the ISI was training and funding the Taliban, and you saw a bit of proof of that in 2021. I know it sounds a bit confusing, but just stay with me on this. In September 2021, I should have drawn like a graphic this thing over there. In 2021, in September, in the first week of September, immediately after the fall of Kabul in August, you had this image that I think you have on your shared computer. This is then Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid, the chief of the ISI, who landed in Kabul based on reporting from the Dawn, this particular newspaper, to potentially meet the Taliban. Now, you don't just go there to meet the Taliban if you don't know them already. So this was seen across the world, particularly in India, as proof of Pakistan's close relationship with the Taliban. That's one way of putting it. But there is also another aspect, because at that time, and you remember this, Binish, we discussed this, then Prime Minister in 2021, Imran Khan, who is now sitting in jail, he also said, talking about the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, he said something like, Afghans have broken through the shackles of slavery. Shackles of slavery. That was the phrasing that he used. He was talking about a regime whose leaders still face sanctions. In fact, Amir Khan Muttaqi is still facing UN sanctions, and he needed an exemption from that to be able to travel to India, an exemption that India had asked for. But Imran Khan was praising that regime, which has now been condemned for its human rights violations, and particularly how it treats women. I've been talking a lot. I'm just going to keep quiet. But did that context make sense so far?
Yes, it did. I mean, there's a lot
Was
of
it factually correct?
there.
Yes, yes. And with Imran Khan, I remember in 2012, when I was in Afghanistan, Imran Khan was the opposition leader, and he gave a statement very sympathetic to Afghan Taliban. And there was a huge outrage in Afghanistan because of Imran Khan's statement. And journalists, government officials there, they were telling me how horrible do they feel whenever anybody from Pakistan praises or expresses sympathy with the Afghan Taliban. Because in 2012, it was a Republican government, more liberal government, and there were women, men who even were educated from Pakistan, because many of them were refugees. They studied in Pakistan, but they had very strong sentiments against the Pakistani state and the government, also opposition, because they did not have any acceptance that how come Pakistani elite, political elite, and the military can praise Afghan Taliban after what they did to Afghan people. And that is kind of like...
And in particular, women.
In particular, also men. They were a brutal regime when they were ruling the government in 1996. So...
My question basically is, with all that history, I mean, there is... I mean, you saw that also amongst the Afghan people. They were not very happy with what they saw as Pakistani support for the Taliban. Where did things go wrong? Why are they shooting at each other now?
I think things went wrong after Taliban took control. They came into power in 2021, and I think that was the biggest miscalculation, I can say, that Pakistan did, or that was the biggest mistake in Pakistan's foreign policy that became evident when Afghan Taliban came to power in 2021. We saw that image. It was not only this that that General Hamid was in Kabul. In Pakistan, there were celebrations. I was in Islamabad, and all news channels were celebrating. And everybody was like, now we finally have a Muslim government. We finally have people who will support now Pakistan, and Pakistan's western border will become safe. Because, of course, Pakistan was harping, supporting covertly, overtly Afghan Taliban for years. And I think within months, it became evident that Afghan Taliban will not succumb to the Pakistani state, or will not continue to act like a proxy of Pakistani state.
Why? What changed for them?
I think they realized they're now in power. They defeated the US, they defeated the NATO troops, and they wanted more sovereignty, they wanted more respect. They did not want to their own people in Afghanistan. They did not want to look as if they are kind of like, they will listen to whatever Pakistani state will tell them, because that was the accusation for many, many years. And yes, go ahead, Alex.
I just need to interject here, because we're having a lot of comments. Thank you very much, everyone, for putting them in the chat. And Nile Chaturvedi, you're making a lot of comments. So we'll definitely get back to those in a moment. But the first one I want to put to you, please, Binish, is from Bhavik Trivedi, who says, why does Pakistan have a bad relationship with all its neighbours apart from China?
Pakistan, okay. So Pakistan does not have bad relations with all of its neighbours.
That is true, yeah.
Definitely with India. And now, from last 3 years, since Afghan Taliban took control, it also has bad relationship with Afghanistan, but it has improved its relations. Like, to be honest, to be fair, it has improved its relations now with Bangladesh. It is improving its relations with Iran as well. It has very good, strong relationship with China. So right now, the two main adversaries in the region that Pakistan has is India and Afghanistan, and there's like complete deadlock. They are strong adversaries of the Pakistani state.
Can we go back to the roots of why these clashes are taking place? Because these clashes have happened today. We've had this report of an airstrike in Kandahar. That is all from today. You had these clashes with the Taliban over the weekend, and then airstrike before that on Thursday, alleged airstrike. We've not seen any pictures of it. We have not been able to verify it. The Pakistani claim is that the Afghan Taliban is harboring terrorists that are attacking Pakistan, particularly security forces personnel. Is there truth to that?
And Vinesh, I think it's also important to lay out the damages that Pakistan is facing and incurring. So Pakistan is facing an extremely dangerous and deadly insurgency in the province of Balochistan and also in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which borders Afghanistan. And Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is the worst. Last year, more than 1,000 people were killed only because of terrorist attacks. This year, I think there have already been hundreds of attacks by Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, in which already more people have been killed already in 2025 as compared to 2024. Now, what is happening is Pakistan says that TTP, and there are other militant groups as well, and also documented by independent and UN experts, so it's not only the Pakistani state that is saying, but Pakistan says that TTP militants are based in Afghanistan. According to UN, there are around 6,000 fighters, Tehreek-e-Taliban fighters, that are active in that region.
Should we bring up the map so we can just have a better understanding? I mean, it's a helpful map because Alex has a map. Just to
it's a very obviously basic map, but important, and obviously the line is the border, and that's what we were referring to earlier, the Durand line. And sorry, just to say one thing, somebody made a comment about it was basically the Brits who put that border in, and yet again I find myself in between you two.
We did not plan to have Alex here. We were not sure we weren't going to be talking about Afghanistan.
I know. So,
but look at Providence.
So
we have Alex here to answer for everything.
In between these two, So yes, unfortunately that. Just to make sure that everyone is
so the northwestern part is very, very deadly, close to Islamabad, and that is very problematic. Every other day, Pakistani military is losing its officers, its security personnel. Every other day, there are funerals. So it's a very deadly insurgency that Pakistan is facing. And Pakistan says that Afghan Taliban are sheltering, supporting, giving help to the Pakistani Taliban, which are crossing border and attacking Pakistani security officers. But in those attacks, civilians also get killed. Now, Afghan Taliban, they completely reject this accusation. But again, I would say that it's not only the Pakistani state, it's other countries as well, but also most importantly, independent and UN experts, they also say that they see a pattern where Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is being helped by the de facto authorities in Afghanistan, which are the Afghan Taliban. Afghan Taliban deny these allegations. Pakistan state says that it's now it's losing its patience, and it cannot continue with the way it's losing its men. And there have been negotiations.
Women as well. Civilians have also been killed.
Have also been killed.
But just to make a point about this border, it is very porous, isn't it, between the two?
Is
and
porous.
I know it's closed at the moment, but it has been
But Pakistan was building a fence. Most of it is actually fenced, but within. That is also a very big problem for the Afghan Taliban. Actually, no government has ever recognized this border, which is recognized...
This blue line called the Durand line that was drawn by the British.
It is recognized by the UN. It is recognized by the UN.
Alex.
Pakistan calls it its border, but Afghan authorities don't accept it. And within few months, or maybe days after Afghan Taliban came to power, there were some Taliban fighters, some Taliban soldiers that would, just break the fence because they don't accept the fence. So that is also one problem, one of the many problems.
Can we just, we'll come to the border thing, but just on the TTP aspect of it, the Pakistan-Taliban aspect of it, why is the Afghan Taliban overtly or covertly allowing the TTP to have free reign?
So Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan was formed during the US invasion of Afghanistan. It was around 2007 that it was created. And basically, so they're Pashtun. They are based in the border area of Pakistan and Afghanistan. So Pakistani Taliban and Afghan Taliban share the same language, same ethnicity. They have familial ties. And this is the group that started resistance against the Pakistani state because Pakistani state was making deals, shaking hands with NATO troops, with the US, and basically the people in that region, also many other people, not only Afghan Taliban, other people in Pakistan also saw that as an invasion in Afghanistan, as an occupation in Afghanistan. And therefore, this movement was created because it was resisting this invasion. And not only that, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan then started giving shelter and support to Afghan Taliban. So during their 20-year fight against all these forces, this group was supporting him. And now Pakistan is asking that just sever all your ties with Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and help us contain this threat. And that is the link that Afghan, and remember, Afghan Taliban also gave hosted also and gave shelter also to members of Al-Qaeda. So it's an ethnic, they have this honor also that it's not very easy to convince Afghan Taliban to just like...
Talking about Al-Qaeda, I mean, you talk also about Osama bin Laden. Where was he eventually found? In Pakistan. He wasn't being sheltered by the Taliban. He was next to the cantonment town.
Absolutely. It's a fact.
Abbottabad.
Yes.
But next to the Pakistan Military Academy. So
can we
officially, Pakistan has never accepted that they were protecting or they were sheltering Al-Qaeda leader. And Pakistan also says there were multiple intelligence agencies operating in the region at that time. But absolutely, the criticism is valid because he was found in Pakistan.
Just very briefly, because DeVos is asking a few questions about the Taliban, as in the Afghan Taliban. So just for people who do not know this region well and aren't, experts like you both are, DeVos would like to know, are there different kinds of beliefs and values within the Taliban themselves, as in the Afghan Taliban?
Yes, and that may help Pakistan. Because not...
So what do you mean? What are the differences?
So not all of... It's not one entity. So within Afghan Taliban, there are factions that actually want women's rights. They promote women's rights. They want schools to open. They're pushing for universities to open. But then there are other stronger factions that don't allow that. But there are divisions within Afghan Taliban. Very interesting. Sirajuddin Haqqani just gave a statement in which he basically...
Sirajuddin Haqqani is the interior minister?
He's the interior minister. And Haqqani Network was also one of the very brutal part of the Afghan Taliban that Pakistan was also accused of sheltering. There was term Quetta Shura, if you remember, but Pakistan was accused of sheltering Haqqani Network. Anyway, within Taliban also, there are people who want to negotiate with Pakistan, who want more peaceful relations with Pakistan. So it's not one ideology within Afghan Taliban, but people in power right now who are making the decisions, they see...
It's more the hardcore conservatives, right?
Yes.
In the Afghan Taliban, there are these things. And the same could potentially be said about the TTP in terms of how they are attacking.
It's really difficult to say TTP. Pakistan has tried negotiating with Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan in the past. Imran Khan was a staunch believer and supporter of negotiating with the Taliban, with the Pakistani Taliban as well, when they were attacking civilians. And only last couple of years, they have stopped attacking civilians directly. I mean, civilians do get killed, but they target security forces. But before that, they were openly, publicly targeting in markets. So around 50,000 Pakistanis have been killed in terrorist attacks, and maybe the figure is now even more.
So, did you want to come in? Or?
Yeah, I do. Can I just ask this question, because this is specifically for you, Beenish, from Let's Be Real. Question for Beenish. Is there a real possibility... well, actually, I think we'll maybe come back to this. This is about Bagram airbase, and I think maybe we don't want to get onto that yet, but don't let me forget that, because I think that's an important one. But just going back to the question about the Taliban, DeVos is saying, just with you saying that there are different views within that group, he says it's just like in all groups, there's more conservative and progressive beliefs in one. Well, I don't know if you'd necessarily say the Taliban was progressive, although you did say that they were supporting women being educated, but not progressive in an American view we would speak of progressive.
But there are also educated Afghan Taliban. There are people who, for example, studied in other countries. Many of them were refugees in Pakistan, and not all of them are so extremely conservative the way we see the leadership right now. So there have...
But at the end of the day, the fact is that women are not being allowed to attend education. And we'll come to that point, because an important point about that was made in India, and Sandra Petersburg, when we bring her in, we'll shed some light on that. But just a point I wanted to sort of bring up about these clashes, because they're happening. We thought they would end on the weekend, but they're continuing. You've had an airstrike as well on Kandahar. Who is benefiting from this? Do the constituencies in Pakistan and Afghanistan, do they benefit from this kind of action on both sides?
Unfortunately, it's no, because it's not good for anyone, not for the people. At the end of the day, Afghanistan is a landlocked, poor country, and it's not that Pakistan's economic situation is very good. The region needs peace. It's not a good thing what's happening right now. People are being killed every day. So it's not sustainable, it is not good. They share the border, they exist together. They have to find a way to ultimately... So what some security experts in Pakistan are saying, that Pakistan has to have like a carrot and stick policy, but also keep the door of negotiations open, because it's also true the kind of damage that Pakistan is facing, or the kind of the way these attacks are happening, and the frequency and the intensity is increasing. Pakistan has to do something, and they have tried negotiating with the Taliban, with Afghan, and it has somehow not worked. But at the end of the day, how long can you continue to kill each other? Of course, Pakistan is a stronger military. Pakistan may succeed temporarily, and...
Right. But so what does Pakistan think is the way forward? Because you could correctly say you can't keep killing each other permanently. How do you...
So Pakistani military is in no mood of talks. That's what I get from their press conferences. They actually are pushing for a very strong political narrative in the country, that the whole country all political parties should unite, and the whole country should be backing the military in carrying out military operations in the border region of Pakistan and Afghanistan, and also to very strongly deal with the Afghan Taliban. That are the statements coming from the Pakistani military. Now, within Pakistan, of course, especially Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, Imran Khan's political party, they have power in this province. They are ruling Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. And they are not very comfortable with these military operations. So Pakistan military is like angry right now that everyone should be united. This is the military.
And this is the military that has a bit of momentum, because there is conflict with India in May. And then Asim Munir became field marshal. So there is this momentum of the military taking action in the interest of the country. And potentially the same could be said about Afghanistan.
Just a couple of points, Beenish, of people taking umbrage, maybe a couple of the things you've said. Bag says, Miss Javid missed the point that the Taliban was a single entity friendly to Pakistan. The rest were against Pakistan always, and Pakistan exploited that for its own purposes, is what they're saying. And Mass Enthusiast says, I'm not sure why Pakistan is expecting sympathy, given who created most of these groups and why. They have UN-designated terrorists giving speeches at political rallies. So those are two, I mean, very...
So this is all a part of Pakistan's history. And that's why I started by saying that Pakistan made mistakes. Pakistan supported, sheltered Afghan Taliban for over 2 decades. Even before that, always Pakistan saw that if it has good relations with Afghan Taliban, Pakistan will have strategic depth in the region against India. And Pakistan did really bad things because Afghan people, the Afghan population, they did not like the Afghan Taliban, and Pakistan was supporting the Afghan Taliban. And Pakistan has harbored, I mean, all of it is documented.
Yeah.
The thing is this, that now what should be done? And this is also debated in Pakistan. Military is criticized. Even there was a recent press conference by Pakistan's DG ISPR, and there were journalists who were saying that you just can't blame one political party of negotiations because Pakistani military made mistakes in the past. It shook hands with militant groups. It harbored and protected them. All of it, nobody is denying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not that Pakistan needs sympathy. The reality right now is, because of Pakistan's mistakes, whatever happened in the past, the country right now is facing a very deadly insurgency. People are being killed in the country. It's the only country in the region that is facing such kind of terrorist attacks. And what should be done, and it's not good for any country.
Okay, let's just move it forward. I mean, let's also just remember 2 things. Firstly, Binish is not answering for the Pakistani government.
Course not.
She's only providing analysis. And just to be clear, just to sort of have that said. And the second, as somebody was also mentioning, I think it was Devos, quite rightly so. Let's all remember, we're talking about human beings who are losing their lives through violent attacks, and that needs to be stopped. And that is the discussion that one should be having. I'd like to take this forward and talk about India, because this is the other equation in this conversation today. Why? Because Amir Khan Muttaqi, the acting foreign minister of Afghanistan, was in India recently for about a week, and he met Indian officials. And this is where I'd like to bring in DW New Delhi Bureau Chief Sandra Petersburg, who has been waiting very patiently. Thank you, Sandra, to come in. There we go. We get to see Sandra. Good to see you, Sandra. She's also been monitoring this visit of Amir Khan Muttaqi. There is so much to talk about, Sandra, but I really do want to talk about the issue of women's rights. And the reason I want to do that is because you saw there was this very contentious press conference that Amir Khan Muttaqi held last week on Friday, where only male journalists were invited. Women were turned away at the gates of the Afghan embassy in Delhi. There was naturally, as there should have been, a huge uproar, particularly from Indian women journalists. And then a second press conference was held, and we have some visuals of that press conference in which women were also invited. They were sitting in the front row of that press conference with Amir Khan Muttaqi. There you go. That's the second press conference that was called on Sunday. And just in this press conference, if you'll allow me, Sandra, one of the women journalists, Smita Sharma, was asking a question that was on many people's minds. We'd just like to sort of play that soundbite so you can listen to it.
Whether it's Syria, whether it is Saudi, women and young girls are not stopped from getting education, not stopped from going to schools and colleges. Why are you doing this, sir, in Afghanistan? When will they be allowed to go back and get their right to education?
It is interesting, Sandra, that it took an Indian woman journalist to raise the point about the role of women and the status of women and girls in Afghanistan. Something like that did not come from the Indian government. It was not there in the joint statement between the Indian government and the acting foreign minister of Afghanistan. Why do you think that is? Does India not care about women's rights in Afghanistan?
I think they do care. Potentially do care. I should probably phrase this a little bit more careful. But what we saw here, it was the first high-level Taliban visit in New Delhi ever since the Taliban retook power in Afghanistan in the summer of 2021. And Mr. Muttaqi sort of got a red carpet kind of visit. It was a very amicable kind of visit. All the official talks were amicable because there is geopolitics at play, there is changing regional dynamics at play, there is so much to unpack from this visit. And my personal feeling was I was also excluded, obviously, from that first presser on Friday, which not only saw no women, it also saw no foreign journalists, I may add that.
Yeah.
And then on that Sunday presser, both were included. And I was glad that Smita asked the question. We got a very unsatisfying answer because acting Foreign Minister Mutaki literally said that the Taliban have at no point said that education for women or girls is haram or not in line with Islam. But he also did not offer any explanation why then girls are not allowed to go to school, why women are not allowed to work, why books are banned, written by female authors from universities, for instance. He just sort of ignored these kind of questions, like India ignored addressing these issues, at least officially in its statements, because like you all said, there are larger things at play. And if you remember, Afghanistan has always been part of the big battle, big global battle. It has always been a battleground for big powers. And what we are seeing right now is also a bit of vying for strategic depth. Pakistan would like to see a friendly government in Kabul. So does India. Pakistan wants to secure its contested border with Afghanistan and seek strategic depth when it comes, maybe at some point, to a return of hostilities with India. Now, from an Indian perspective, it's almost similar, you know. They would also like to see a friendly or a regime that's at least not hostile in Kabul, a regime that it can work with, that does not pose a threat to India's security interest. And I think this is the kind of line in which we have to see this first high-level Taliban visit in India, which came with a promise by India to upgrade its embassy. So the embassy, which is a technical mission at the moment, will be upgraded to a fully functioning diplomatic mission, but stopping short of recognizing the Taliban as the official government of Afghanistan. You have seen the black and white flags of the Taliban that is inside the Afghan embassy, but outside we still see the flag of the old republic. And when you remember the meeting between Mutaki and Jaishankar, there was in fact no flag at all to avoid precisely this question.
Just on the point of security, you know, that's something that you brought up. And Mutaki was also saying that they promise that Afghanistan will not be used as a base for terrorism against any other country. That assurance was given. But how does India really see that, given that that similar assurance does not seem to be working when it comes to Pakistan? Because Pakistan keeps alleging that Afghanistan, the Afghan Taliban is sheltering the Pakistan Taliban that allows it to carry out attacks in Pakistan. So if it is not working with one country, why is India certain that a similar assurance will work for it?
I don't think that India is certain. I think India is really practicing realpolitik here. And in a way, isn't it ironic? So India is accusing Pakistan of cross-border terrorism, like Pakistan is accusing the Afghan Taliban of cross-border terrorism. So in a way, we do have two narrations here that somewhat align, though the ideologies between, let's say, the Indian government and the Afghan Taliban couldn't be further apart. But when it comes to realpolitik, to strategic interests of India, I think India has learned a lesson that it is maybe a pragmatic and smart move to engage to a certain extent with the Afghan Taliban, given that their rule in Afghanistan is pretty much uncontested at this stage, and that shutting them out completely is not helping its own interests, because obviously India has a keen eye on whatever Pakistan is doing, and then you have already mentioned China with its strategic interest. So I think this motivation drives India to have a foothold, a footprint footprint in Afghanistan, even if it's ruled by the Taliban.
I get the feeling that you're reading my mind, because I was thinking about China as well, because you have China that has also opened an embassy, or is going to open. I think it has already opened an embassy. I think you might know this better, Sandra,
Yeah.
but they already opened it, I think. They have an embassy. They have also not officially recognized the Taliban government, but then there's also talk about Chinese companies having access to mining in Afghanistan. There's also this interest of the terrorism, because China doesn't want any terror sympathizers to creep into Xinjiang, which it has on the border. And then there is also Russia, India's old-time friend. That is the only country that has recognized this Taliban regime in Afghanistan. How is that shaping India's decision-making?
I think all of it is influencing India's decision-making. India does not want to be the odd one out looking on from the outside. India wants to be in the game, and it is a geopolitical power game, mind you. And India sees itself as a rising power. India sees itself as somebody who has a lot of regional and international clout. So I think by saying we are reopening our embassy there without formally recognizing the Taliban regime, that is as far as India will go for the moment. Then, of course, India also has economic interests in the region. You have already spoken about trade and trade routes. And obviously, if India wants to connect with Central Asia, Afghanistan is very much needed. You have mentioned mining. India is also a hungry country when it comes to energy needs. And while Motaki was here, he had meetings with Indian business representatives as well. He invited India to come to Afghanistan to also invest into the mining sector. So all of this is at play. And then let's not forget that there is also other powers, like the Arab nations, like the United States of America. I think, Alex, you might want to go back to that Bagram airbase question that somebody asked there.
Let's ask that Bagram question.
Yeah, so this is from a question from Let's Be Real. It was for Beanish, but you can answer this as well. But Sandra, let's ask you first. Is there a real possibility of India taking up the Bagram base, as has been rumoured? Let's Be Real says, I find it hard to believe, as India has tried avoiding getting involved in conflicts, they say.
I can't see that happening. And I want to point to something else. If you remember, Mr. Motaki was flying into New Delhi from Moscow because before his engagements in India, there was the so-called Moscow Forum, and that issued a joint declaration. And Pakistan, mind you, was also there, where everybody said Bagram Air Base is not going to go to any other country. And that was directly addressed at the United States of America. So here, the triangle that we have been discussing, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, actually aligned from the soil of Russia without the United States being present. So you see, geopolitics sometimes is fascinating, a fascinating creature. And I can't see that happening, frankly.
It was interesting also that S. Jaishankar was also talking about respecting the territorial integrity, independence and sovereignty of Afghanistan. And I wondered if that was a wink to this US demand to have Bagram Air Base back, and also a wink potentially to Pakistan and the potential airstrikes that have been happening there. How do you see it?
Absolutely, absolutely. It was, I think, an even stronger wording as compared to the Moscow Declaration, because this was a bilateral thing, which, of course, did not go down well with Pakistan, went down very well with Afghanistan. And in return, Afghanistan gave India the assurance that, Afghan territory will not be used for any hostilities directed at India. So it was a lot of give and take, because both, I think, see a chance here. Afghanistan, a landlocked country, is in dire need of development aid, of strong economic ties in the region. And for that, India is needed very much, even more so as we see the fallout with Pakistan. Now, for India, of course, it means that they can, in a way, corner Pakistan a little bit more. from the other side as well. So it will be sandwiched between India's strategic interests. And I think this is what drives India's geopolitical interests here. Mind you, of course, there are also economic interests at play here. And also India has always been very good at providing humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan because it's close by and it can reach.
And that's certainly some points that have come out in our chat. But just on Bagram Air Base, Binesh, you wanted to say something?
No, Pakistan also does not want any US troops presence in the region. So I think that there is an agreement on that. But when it comes to, I think I missed this point, and it's this problem of terrorism also is, there's geopolitics also in it, because all of these attacks, it's not only that Pakistan officially blames Afghan Taliban. Pakistan also, in all of its statements now, very vocally accuses India of fomenting terrorism in Pakistan or supporting these militant groups. Of course, India has always denied these accusations. India also says that Pakistan has not given any evidence or proof of that. But Pakistan is linking Pakistan believes that this unity or the nexus between Afghanistan and India is also causing destabilization in Pakistan.
Can I just stick with Bagram, because we have got some other questions on this. Angel 4 Escuera has said this particular, with reference to Bagram, where would the United States of America stand over what's going on between Taliban-ruled Afghanistan and Pakistan since the US showed interest with Afghanistan weeks back over Bagram Air Base?
I think he gave a statement, but it's, and I read on CNN, I think he said something that they are fighting and they should stop, but there has been no big, no proper official statement, I think.
No big push as yet for Trump to play peacemaker when it comes to Afghanistan and Pakistan. But he did say that he hopes that India and Pakistan can continue to live as, can eventually start living as friends, which led to some sort of a reaction from Shehbaz Sharif, who was standing behind him. I just want to, one more question to you, and then I want to go back to Sandra. How did Pakistan see the visit of Amir Khan Muttaqi to India? Did Pakistan feel betrayed? Did Pakistan feel, what was the reaction there?
No, Pakistan is very uncomfortable, of course, because Pakistan just had a conflict with India, and it is in a very uncomfortable position where with Afghanistan it is having tensions, huge tensions, conflict also, and then their foreign minister is in it. It is really like poking Pakistan, the whole thing. And I cannot rule out that the strikes that apparently that Pakistan has not confirmed, that those strikes that happened on Thursday in Kabul, like the capital of Afghanistan. The last strike, I believe, that happened was in 2022, where US airstrike killed Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri. So I believe that this may be a signal as well. So definitely it's a very uncomfortable situation for Pakistan to see Afghan foreign minister in India.
I want to come back to you, Sandra. We've seen all these, we're seeing these images we were showing to our viewers of the both sides beating, and it's again landmark and historic. It was being built up to. India will be opening an embassy, rather changing the technical mission to an embassy. Potentially an ambassador also goes there. It is not official recognition, but all of this just looks like official recognition, the red carpet welcome. So why not officially recognize the Taliban regime in Afghanistan?
I think that would go too far, because let's not forget that most of the representatives of the Taliban, including Mr. Muttaqi, are still on the United Nations sanctions list. He could only fly to India because he was exempted. He got a waiver that enabled his traveling. And also, I think the United Nations have placed certain conditions. And India would, to my understanding, never recognize the Taliban regime without the United Nations doing so, because Indian policy is firmly rooted in UN policy as well. And there is the big obstacle of the Taliban's gender apartheid. That's what the United Nations call it. It is the most repressive, misogynistic regime when it comes to women that is currently in place in this world. And then also the fight against terrorism convincingly, that was another condition. And so until and unless these standards aren't met and there is a big international push for full recognition, this is not going to happen, because it would in fact mean that you would recognize a regime that has toppled an elected government by force. And that is, I think, precisely what is stopping not just India, but most nations to recognize the Taliban.
Sandra, I did want to draw on your experience in Afghanistan. Help me out. I'm forgetting, was it in 2023 that you were there? Or was it 2022?
No, 2022.
2022. Yeah,
it was the 1 year anniversary,
correct.
Actually. The 1 year anniversary of the fall of Kabul. I was there for a month.
Correct, yeah. You were there because we remember you filed your stories from there and you interviewed members of the Taliban, particularly when it came to women's rights and their, well, let's say, hesitation, and I'm being really polite here, hesitation in allowing women to have further education. Can you give me your personal impressions? What did you think when you were there meeting Taliban officers or members of the Taliban? What do they actually think and why do they think it? And do you actually think women will get a fair chance in Afghanistan in the future?
Oof. It's a little bit like crystal ball reading, but the simple answer right now is no, I don't think so. And I remember particularly well an interview that I had with the then spokesperson of the Ministry for the Prevention of Vice and Promotion of Virtue. I find it fascinating that that came over my lips without stumbling. Usually it's Vice and Virtue for short. And I asked him the question. I said, how do you think the country is going to develop without half its population? And he said, well, we are working on it and something will happen very soon. We will make schools accessible, but it has to be according to Sharia law. It has to be in line with what Sharia prescribes and with Afghan culture. So those were the reasons given why women can't go to work, why girls can't go to school. But instead of putting something in place, what we have seen is the complete opposite. The regime is getting more and more repressive. Female voices in public, not allowed. Female books in university libraries, not allowed. Girls and women at universities, not allowed. Even midwife training, not allowed. We are really looking at such a devastating maternal health crisis at the moment in Afghanistan under the watch of this regime. So I cannot foresee a point where this is going to change, although they keep on claiming that something is going to happen very soon. A colleague of mine from German national broadcaster ARD was in Kabul just 2 weeks ago. He also had an interview with a new spokesperson of Vice and Virtue, and this person said, we are 95% there and we will release our educational plan for women and children, for women and girls soon. Well, I only believe it when I see it. And then the question would remain, what kind of education are we really talking about? Is it equal education or is it gender apartheid education?
Binish, did you want to come in?
No, I had a point on the Afghan government. So this is also the first time that Pakistan has now pushed, after many, I think like a couple of years, Pakistan is now pushing for an inclusive Afghan government in Afghanistan. And that is something that also triggers Afghan Taliban a lot, because that was agreed in the Doha Agreement, that Afghanistan will have an inclusive government that is representative of everyone. Right. So this is something also that now Pakistan is, and I don't know where it will go, but I remember in 2021 when Afghan Taliban took over, Pakistan was publicly celebrating. We have discussed this, but at the same night, I was in Islamabad and Pakistan was hosting warlords of Northern Alliance in Islamabad. So Pakistan has connections. So I don't know where it will lead, but Pakistan may also try to use or push for an opposition in Afghanistan if things don't change for Pakistan's security, national security.
That's a very important point you're making, and I will come back to that. But just a piece of breaking news that I wanted to update you guys. Our producer Paul just letting us know that we began this stream talking about the shooting between Afghanistan Taliban troops and Pakistani troops on the border that was happening today as well. And now apparently a 48-hour ceasefire has been announced by both sides. So over the next 48 hours, we'll have to see how this develops and if this develops into something else or not. Did you want to say something?
Yes. Nilay Chaturvedi, just on this situation of women, he says the women's situation in Afghanistan won't get better anytime soon. Why? Because the Taliban doesn't want it and others cannot force them. Given the global geopolitical situation, the world doesn't care what happens to the women of Afghanistan. I mean, certainly there has been international pressure, but it does seem there's not much that anyone can or really is willing to do to go any further with that.
Yes. I mean, the Western countries and the US have frozen all of Afghanistan's asset, and they have cut down on humanitarian aid to Afghanistan. So there is also an argument that this has not worked. This has not forced Afghan Taliban to change their course, but it has worsened the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. Yeah. The UN says that we have to negotiate and continue to engage with the Taliban. There is no other way. The women rights, of course, activists, they feel very angry about this. They criticize the UN because they believe that the UN nobody should even engage with the Taliban. But then there are different point of views in the region, everybody's engaging with the Taliban.
Yeah, I want to talk about the region and just quickly about what all of this means for the region. Sandra, if I can just come to you, we're looking at, whenever we talk about Afghanistan, one always talks about the great game, yeah? And now references are being made to the new great game because of this Taliban reach out and Indian acceptance of the Taliban reach out, an old rival now becoming friends with the Taliban, the vice versa happening between Pakistan and the Afghan Taliban. How do you see, where is all this going? Is this making South Asia a more dangerous place?
Yeah, I would say yes, because if you look at the region, like I said at the very beginning, Afghanistan, because of its positioning in the world, has always been almost at the center of the great game, whether it was during the Cold War or then during after 9/11 in the US-led war on terror. It was always right at center stage. And now it is surrounded by 3 nuclear powers who are vying for power in the region. And we are also looking at the greater geopolitical power game. Is it going to be a multipolar world? Is it going to be a bipolar world where on the one side you have the United States and its allies, and on the other side you have China on its allies? So all of this will affect Afghanistan, will make Afghanistan a strategic battleground. Maybe not a battleground of active war at all times, but a strategic battleground where all these powers that I just mentioned are vying for power for sure. And that is, for the Afghans, bad news because it keeps them in a very weak spot with or without Taliban.
Very well summed up, Sandra. Did you have a thing for Sandra?
Well, I do have. There are a couple of questions for Sandra if we have time. Briefly, Sandra, let's be real, is asking, do you see India providing defensive weapons to Afghanistan? Would it be practical considering the training and the maintenance? That's one question. And the second one from Nilay Chaturvedi is asking you, do you believe that Pakistan is hoping for some kind of US re-entry into Afghanistan so that it can counter Afghanistan better and gain strategic prominence? But I think given what you were saying, we were talking about before with Bagram airbase, perhaps the answer would be no, but I don't know if you've got quick comments on those.
I would repeat my no, but this is now. I mean, things can change quickly. We see how quickly geopolitics and regional dynamics are changing at the moment. For now, my answer is no. If you ask me again in a couple of months or in a year's time, let's revisit perhaps. And in terms of weapons shipments from India to Afghanistan, I can't see that happening right now. At least not, and this is perhaps something I should add, overtly. Because obviously there are Pakistani allegations of will there be or is there already clandestine covert support for the Afghan Taliban regime. It's nothing that I know of. And in order to get there, I think it would need one real hardcore investigation. For now, I think India's eyes are more on befriending, having better ties, having a good working relationship, having somebody to talk to secure its own security and strategic needs, which does not necessarily involve sending loads of weapons to the Taliban yet. Because I think it was you, Biresh, saying at the very beginning, can they be sure that they will stay friends with India, yes or no? So I think it's a cautious approach still.
No, Sandra, we want certainty in this fast-moving world. Can you not just give us some sort of certainty?
Just Ian Brown, just on that, says, I think by providing weapons to the Taliban, which includes, and he mentioned some of the other groups such as TTP, India will be arming terrorists, which would isolate them even more. That's their view on that question. So thank you. There are more questions for you, but I think we're running out of time, aren't we? So
yeah, and it might also isolate India. Yeah. I mean, if that news would break,
but that's
I
what
think
they're
India
saying.
would look
That
pretty
it
bad.
would isolate India. That's what Ian Brown is saying. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Sandra, I think we can say goodbye to you because it's late in India. Thanks so much for making the time and sharing your experiences in Afghanistan and all that you've been watching in India. Always a pleasure talking to you. Have a good evening. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Bye,
Same to you. Bye-bye, team. Bye.
Bye, Sandra. I wanted to come to you on that point about whether South Asia becomes more dangerous with what is happening. What would your answer to that be?
I also think that I'm not very positive right now, but things may change. But Afghanistan and also maybe some border areas around border areas in Pakistan, there are multiple terrorist groups that are operating. This is well documented by UN, and this is not a good news. Islamic State Khorasan is there, Al-Qaeda is there. Al-Qaeda may not pose that kind of a threat, but Islamic State Khorasan has hundreds of fighters. Tehrik-e-Taliban has 6,000 fighters. There are militant groups that target Central Asian states. There are militant groups that target China, and it's a very, and they may not be attacking frequently, so we are not like alarmed, but they do sporadically attack different countries and also within Afghanistan. And Pakistan also has seen attacks not only from TTP but also the Islamic State Khorasan, big attacks. So unless there is seriousness to resolve this issue, where other militant groups don't enter into this region because they think that they have a safe haven there, or there is a system where they can continue to organize and to plan. I think that needs to be dealt with. And this is something that if this is resolved, then I do think things may improve. But Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, ultimately, they have to find a way to negotiate and start talking with each other. It's not good for any country.
Okay. Let's try and wrap up this stream now. And I already see that, Cherry, you closed the poll. Do you want to give us the results of that poll?
Yeah, I closed the poll just a few minutes ago. Thank you a lot for voting. Let me repeat the question. What is the best way to engage with the Taliban? Here's what you think, all of you, with the 229 votes that we've got. 33% of the votes goes to provide humanitarian aid. 32% goes to officially recognize the government. 20% says to push for women's rights, and 15% says that to avoid engagement entirely.
I'm just so surprised how close recognizing the government and providing humanitarian aid are. I mean, so there seems to be, at least amongst you guys who are watching the stream, that you guys are in agreement that maybe recognizing the government is a best way to engage with the Taliban.
Yeah, and there have been quite a few comments saying that they're supporting certainly Afghanistan, and certainly Afghanistan over Pakistan. So I assume that those are probably some of our Indian viewers on that. Let me just tell you this, Beenish. as a compliment for you. Let's Be Real says, we are glad to have you here for your analysis. A lot of it is not understood outside Pakistan, so that perspective is important and we need to take that in without judgment. Thank you.
Thank you, Binish, for that. And thanks, Jerry, for running this poll and talking to everybody in the chat. A very animated chat, I think we had.
Quite a
from
lot
whatever
of
I was
discussion
saying.
there. Yeah.
Some heated arguments, but yeah, to be expected, all in good spirit. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We're back again next week.
Yeah, we're back again next week. We'll have about 24 hours before on our community post. We will let you know what we will be talking about, but I very much hope we can see you again next week. Thank you.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.